Welcome to NoBS, the gaming news podcast where we ditch the sugarcoating and give it to you straight. I'm Blake.
And I'm Steve.
And if you're looking for real talk without the BS, you've come to the right place. Before we jump in, don't forget to stay connected with us. Follow us on X at NoBS Podcast GG for all the latest updates and hot takes. Check out our YouTube channel, NoBS Podcast GG, and be sure to hit that subscribe button. Love what you're hearing? Show your support by liking this episode, dropping a comment with your thoughts, and subscribing to keep up with all our future content. Your engagement helps us bring more of the no BS talk that you love. All right, let's cut to the BS and get into today's episode. So welcome, everyone. This is to episode 3 of the No BS podcast. It's been quite a week, and I'm looking forward to sharing some big news with you all. With the amount of games that have come out recently, Steve, what have you been playing?
I've been playing a bit of a mixture of games. I started off the week strong playing Black Myth Wukong and kind of ended the week off with some World of Warcraft. What about you?
So I've been playing definitely World of Warcraft with the early access, but I was playing a bit of Fortnite too. I know last week I talked about the new season being dropped, and I was actually excited to play it, and my excitement has dwindled down because I was, really happy about the, Magneto gloves and the fists and stuff like that, and already, a week into this season, I've barely played it after, like, the first couple of days, just because it's, like, the mythic items that they have in the game are just so overpowered, and it's like if you don't have them, it's like you're pretty much just asking to lose. So I was on the hype train at first, but now I don't know, I haven't found myself getting on it for more than like 5 minutes. So besides that, like I've just been playing nothing but Fortnite, or nothing but World of Warcraft.
I feel like that's how every season of Fortnite is for me. I get super hyped and super excited about the new stuff that they add.
Yeah,
I enjoy the new maps and the new skins. But after a couple of games, I'm kind of very quickly brought back down to earth, and I'm just like, I just don't enjoy this anymore. It's just not as fun anymore.
From what I'm hearing, the next season, which is like 3 months away from now, they're talking about going back to OG. So no more mythic weapons and all this mobility, these mobility gloves or jetpacks. It's gonna be like bare game, which I think is so like I was telling you last week, there was like right after it released, I noticed like 1 million plus players on, and now I'm noticing between the playlists you're looking at like maybe 500,000 to 600,000 people, and that's been at like peak times. So I think like the community is very outspoken on how they're kind of over this whole jetpack, fist, mythic, the overpoweredness of it all.
Yeah, that's the one issue with live service games is it has to continue to change and continue to provide some form of new excitement and intrigue for players. Otherwise, they get bored and they move on to the next game or play something else. That's why you see games like Fortnite, Apex, and Call of Duty always kind of trying to add new things and bring some form of new excitement. But again, like you said, a lot of the times people just want the same old classics and just want to enjoy the game the way they used to.
Well, I know, like with especially the battle royale genre, like that's why like even Warzone, the numbers are dropping down. It's hard to keep them coming back, which is where it's going to lead us into our first segment here. Talk about like new games and stuff like that these games had to compete with. Gamescom was this week, and it's actually been a pretty good month, I think, for games overall. And those unfamiliar with what Gamescom is, it's pretty much it is the world's largest gaming event, where they talk about new releases and all that stuff. And I kind of wanted to talk about some notable mentions that they had brought up. So one of the biggest games that look actually pretty promising is going to be Dune Awakening, which is due to release early 2025 on PC and then later on PS5 and the Xbox. And what this game is according to the developers, it's a survival social MMO. And in their interview, they were talking about having guilds and really focusing on that social aspect of it. And they also were talking about a big priority being their end game. I'm sure if you've noticed, like with the amount of MMOs that have come out, one of the big things that a lot of them fail to do is focus on their end game. You know, it's like once you reach max level, if there's really nothing to keep you logging on, eventually the game's gonna die out. You know.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of tie in that whole survival aspect. I think we're seeing it now with the Once Human, but it's one of those things where survival games. You have to have that kind of reset portion of the game just so
Yeah.
new players are able to come in and enjoy the game as well. So I'm really kind of interested to see. I think the whole bringing an MMO onto consoles is a really good idea, and I think any new MMO in the space should be looking at bringing it to consoles as well, because not everyone has a PC.
It's such
Some
a big
people just,
market.
yeah, it's humongous. The only issue I would say is it does kind of dumb down the game. I think
Yeah.
coming from us that we've been playing World of Warcraft for such a long time, we're kind of accustomed to having sometimes like 40 buttons that you're having to kind
Yeah.
of keep track of and press throughout a game. So to go into console where you're maybe limited to like 6, 7 buttons. So
Yeah.
it's
Whatever's on your controller. Yeah.
I think it'll play more like a MOBA. It's kind of what I'm imagining. I don't know if you've ever played Lost Ark.
No, never played it.
So it's similar to Diablo. It's a kind of like a top down MMO, but very similar to Diablo, very similar to like a MOBA play style where you click to move and you have very limited abilities and then an ultimate. So I'm kind of guessing it's going to be something like that, but it also does look kind of like it may have some aspects of Destiny as well.
Hopefully it
It's
does
super
better.
interesting. I mean,
Destiny.
Destiny for the most part has been fairly successful, I would say. For a franchise like Destiny 2 was fun, Destiny 1 was fun, and I think it has a really good community and a lot of people really seem to enjoy it. It's just different, I would say, than what we're kind of accustomed to coming from
Well,
an MMO.
yeah, but like what I like, especially these new consoles have implemented, is the ability to plug in a keyboard, you know, mouse and keyboard into your console. So maybe, I mean, I could see them dumbing down for the people who like just don't want to, you know, make that transition. But I mean, I really don't know how many. I really don't know how many people would be willing to, you know, go out and buy a another mouse, you know, a mouse and keyboard just to play their game.
Yeah. I definitely think it's going to be limited abilities. Like I said, I think it's going to play like if it is like an ability based MOBA or not MOBA, MMO, I think it's going to play a lot like a MOBA where you have 4 or 5 abilities and an ultimate.
Be pretty cool, yeah. So another cool one that's set to come out is Star Wars Outlaw, which is set to be their first ever open world Star Wars game, which is kind of surprising considering how long these Star Wars games have been out. And this game is going to be taking place between The Empire Strikes Back and the Return of the Jedi. And I'm kind of curious how this one's going to turn out because it's, you know, it's developed by Bungie. And with how many layoffs they've had, it's kind of, you know, are they going to have the people to really put out a good game or not? So this game here is going to have 3 different tiers to it, 3 different editions. You got your standard edition at $69.99, your gold edition at $109.99, and your ultimate at $129.99. And really the biggest difference between all these is at the $129 price point. You're going to get the base game, a season pass, two cosmetic bundles, and a digital art book. Now, I'm not sure if that price point is really worth it. Maybe if they gave you early access to the game or whatever, maybe. But even then, it's like you're paying pretty much for 2 games at pretty much $130. You know, and factor in tax, you're gonna be paying about $150 for a single game. Is kind of, I think it's pretty steep.
Yeah, especially because some of the early access gameplay that you've kind of seen with the game doesn't seem all that impressive. So I'm curious to see how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, to basically, I said add an extra $60 onto the game for early access, and it's like who knows, like that's if they even like do that, to pay that amount of price for maybe a week to play early isn't worth it. I remember back in old Call of Duty days, you used to get in early access if you pre-ordered the game, but it wasn't ever like you didn't have to pay a even more of a price to do it. I think it was like MW2 back in like 2000 and 2009, I think is when that came out. You bought your base game for $49 at GameStop, and like if you had already pre-ordered it, you'd gotten like a code to access the game earlier, but you didn't pay 3 times or 2 times the amount of the game to play it.
I mean, to an extent, I think if people want to pay, that's fine. I think very similar to kind of with the game that we're playing with World of Warcraft, we both paid an extra $40 just for the early access.
Yeah, and it's see, but like a game like I guess WoW has been out for like so long. So like I mean, I guess if you've been playing Star Wars since like day one, like we've been doing WoW, then maybe I could justify it.
Yeah, or if you enjoy the franchise as a whole as well.
And speaking of WoW, I know I've talked about this quite a bit on the past couple episodes. The War Within is finally coming out on the 26th. Now, if you purchased the Epic Edition, which is $89, which was pretty much $90, you had early access, which again both of us have. So we've been playing since the 22nd. So War Within, like I said, coming out the 26th. So this is actually the 10th expansion of the game. So it's the 11th overall World of Warcraft. And it's cool because this game has actually been around since 2004. So and they have quite the player base, and to see them still putting out expansions 20 years later is crazy. And then they did an interview with Chris, who's one of the lead developers of the game, big developer. I didn't even know this. They actually develop expansions like years down the road. So they've actually been working on War Within, 4 or 5 years ago. So he's talking about like another 20 years worth of game, which is cool. I mean, I don't know if I could see myself still playing WoW when I'm 50 years old. But I mean, not saying there's anything wrong with doing it, but to be playing a game that's been out since 2004 would be kind of cool to be, or be kind of crazy to be playing a game that's 40 years old. So I just really quick want to touch on the price point of this. So they do have it available if you haven't gotten it yet. They have the base edition at $49.99, which just includes the game and a level 70 boost. I also want to mention too in this one, so 70 is no longer the max level. You have to go to 80. So you start out at 70 with that boost. They have the Heroic Edition, which includes the free level 70, an in-game mount, and a transmog set with 3 additional earnable colors through quests and stuff like that. And that price point is at $69.99 for the Heroic Edition. And then they have the Epic Edition, which is what we got, which was $89.99. And that actually included 30 days of game time, everything that you would get in the Heroic version, and then you'd get a toy. And then like if you would have actually purchased this earlier like we did, you would have had access, or you'd have access to their beta, which obviously is closed now, and then it gave you early access as well. And on top of these price points, you got to remember too, you got to pay a $15.99 a month subscription, or that gets discounted if you do purchase it as like a whole year bundle.
And they actually very rarely do the year bundle. I think they do it like once every so often when I feel like when their subscriber counts go down, just to try to bring people back. But
I mean, if you can afford the $100 to do it, I mean, it's not bad to just do it and save yourself the extra $20-$30. I think you get like at least a good 2 to 3 months extra.
Yeah, I think that's usually what I end up doing is I just buy the year, and then I find myself not playing for a couple months, and then I was like, oh, I have some wild time. Let me see what's going on. And just jump
that's
back
why
in.
That's why I don't buy the year, because I'm always like, I'm gonna do it by month to month. If it's a good game, if they're doing a good job of balancing it and updating everything, then it's like, yeah, I'll keep my subscription going. But like, let's just say it sucks, or I'm like, man, this is terrible, whatever. It's like, man, I just spent $100 for a whole year, but who knows if I only play 2-3 months out of it.
Yeah, I think that's what kind of Dragonflight was for me. I think the beginning of the expansion, I played very little, and then towards the end, I started kind of ramping up. But I already had like I said, I already had the year subscription, so
Yeah,
I could just jump back in whenever I wanted, and it's going to
that
be
is pretty
something similar.
convenient.
Yeah.
So one other game I wanted to talk about that was announced was the release of Diablo 4 DLC called Vessel of Hatred. So this DLC is supposed to be released October 8th, and it includes a new class, a new region, and some more things that they didn't uh, specify in it. So I've never played any of the Diablo games. How about you?
I love Diablo. Diablo is such a fun ARPG, and
It's a
I don't
dungeon
have
crawler,
a
right?
yeah. You kind of just I've never delved too deep into the Diablo endgame. Diablo is always like one of those games where I jump in, I hit max level, and then I kind of just stop playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for the most part, it's just you just jump into dungeons, do harder and harder dungeons, get better gear, and rinse and repeat. You just kind of increase the difficulty over and over again until you kind of get to a point where you just don't want to play it anymore. But it's
Now,
super fun. It's
but
super fun. Like the combat is really fast paced.
yeah.
Um, every character feels different.
Wasn't there a whole like thing around Diablo 4 being like pay to win? I feel like there was like people talking about how if you had all this money, like you were able to get like super geared right
So
away.
so that was a big thing with Diablo 3. They had like an real money auction house for a long
Yeah.
time, and needless to say, it did not go very well, and they shut it down fairly quickly. Diablo 4, I did not play too much in the beginning of the release, but I know it got really bad reviews, and it wasn't until recently that it actually kind of people kind of started coming back to it and saying how much fun they were having with the current seasons. So I think there's a lot of hype currently with this new expansion coming out.
Sounds like they're
So
actually listening to their player base now.
yeah, I mean a lot of people really enjoy it. It was pretty funny. There was a video a couple months ago that kind of fell through my timeline with the developers playing the game, and it's always funny to see when developers play it because you can kind of see whether or not like they actually play their own game. But it's like you have these people playing Diablo who kind of look like they've never played Diablo before. So I was a bit hesitant at first to kind of come back to it after seeing that, and then
Yeah.
after seeing all the really good reviews on the newest season, I decided to kind of jump back in and play it.
And maybe I need to check that out then.
It's pretty fun if you enjoy like action based RPGs, you'll like it. I don't know if you've ever played any other. Have you ever played like Warcraft or anything like that?
I played
Um,
I think I played Warcraft.
but Diablo is super fun. Diablo 3, I know for a long time was free if you had a World of Warcraft subscription, so you might have it. But otherwise, there's other options as well that are free to play. Like Path of Exile is a big one, and that's one that people love. And Path of Exile 2 is coming out, and a lot of people are kind of claiming it to be like the Diablo killer because basically everything that Diablo 4 wasn't doing is stuff that these developers are doing. The talent tree, the skill tree is insane. Like you can just go anywhere. It looks like it's super intimidating when you first see it, but once you start playing and you start kind of jumping into it and just throwing talent points here, it kind of starts coming together, and it's very fun to play.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm definitely going to give that a shot when I'm done grinding. Wow. So, real quick, I just want to mention the price points for this. So, if you don't have Diablo 4 already, they do have this expansion available for purchase on Battle.net right now. So, you got, again, your 3 tiers, which is pretty standard with Blizzard. You got your standard, which is $39.99. Your deluxe edition, which is $59.99. Then your ultimate edition. And then same thing with all the different tiers. The only thing really you get with the ultimate is like pets, and there's a mount. too. So I'm not a big Diablo player, but I guess if you are, it might be worth it to purchase that Ultimate Edition. So wanted to hop in this next one with Xbox and Microsoft. So Xbox has been losing quite a lot of their exclusives. So I've learned that PlayStation actually has about 10 times the amount of exclusives that Xbox has. And I think, so because of that, the player, I don't know if like there's more players now at the PlayStation. I think Xbox is kind of trying to make a move in the right way. They're talking about bringing like Deadpool and Marvel back to the Xbox store, which according to GameInfinus.com, that was actually dropped due to the licensing deal Activision had with Marvel, and it expired. You would have thought that they would have been on top of that with how big they are, but there's a lot of games that actually weren't, or that got taken off of the Xbox store that I'd like to see brought back, like Battlefield 2, Doom, and Doom 2, and like the Sonic games. And to touch on that exclusiveness, there's really I'm kind of torn on it, because I feel like it's not a bad thing necessarily to remove the exclusiveness behind the console, just as that way, like if you're a developer of a game, you're giving more people access to it. But with Xbox doing that, it kind of almost seems like they're signing their death wish, because it's going to become to the point where it's like, especially if PlayStation doesn't stop with their exclusives, you're going to be like, okay, what am I going to buy? Am I going to buy the PlayStation that has, again, 10 times the amount of exclusives, or am I going to get the Xbox? Because I know if I buy the PlayStation, I'm going to get all these exclusives and 90% of the games that Xbox is putting out. So it's like, why wouldn't you just buy the PlayStation over that?
The crazy thing too, it's the exclusives are the reason people are buying the consoles. So if you start losing a lot of those exclusive titles, a lot of people are going to be less likely to buy an Xbox. And it's crazy to see, because Xbox had such a huge lead on Sony in terms of the console wars, with the original Xbox, and then the Xbox 360 having Halo and Gears of War. Like,
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
They were crushing it, and then it was the Xbox One that kind of took them down. I think Microsoft just kind of messed up by trying to platform themselves as the all-in-one media system, and that was their whole thing. That's why they called it the Xbox One, because they wanted this to be the one and only thing that you had in your household. So you would have Netflix, you could watch TV through your Xbox. It was the first system where you had to be online 100% of the time. And I think that kind of killed it for a lot of people. They didn't like the idea of being unable to play games while you were offline, or while you were offline, and having to be online 100% just to play games.
Yeah.
But yeah, now you see it where Sony they just kept pushing and kept grinding, and now they have every single big exclusive with Spider-Man 2 last year. They had Helldivers this year, and they just kind of continue to push the envelope. And I was reading something that developers really hate the idea that Xbox has basically two different versions of a console. They have the Series X and the Series S.
Yeah.
The Series S is like a much more dumbed down version of the Xbox, where so developers now, they have to create a game that's optimized for the X, but then also optimized for the S. So in a sense, it's this developer was kind of talking about it. An example he used was if you have a certain fight scene in a world where you're fighting against 40 enemies on the X, you have to kind of bring that down to 18 now, because the Series S can't necessarily handle it. And that's one of the things. It's like they can't really just dumb down the graphics, because that wouldn't work. Console players won't accept the fact that a game looks terrible to improve performance, versus like PC, that you can if you have a bad PC, you're accustomed to, okay, I have to bring my graphics and make it look like crap just so I can play the game.
Yeah. Well, I always thought it was funny. So when we used to play back in the day, it was always Xbox. Like you said, Halo, Gears of War, Call of Duty. It used to be a meme. Like Xbox or Call of Duty was pretty much almost like always played on Xbox. If you played competitively or whatever like that, you were always on Xbox. And the only reason why people would even at the time go to PlayStation to play Call of Duty was because for the longest time PlayStation actually didn't require a subscription to play. I mean that's obviously changed, but it's just funny to see how the tides have kind of turned, and it's almost like now like PlayStation's becoming the way more popular of a console. Like I said, because like you said, they got how many more freaking exclusives. So it's like again, why pick up an Xbox? And you don't need they don't. There's not 30 different versions of the PS5 that you can get. It's the the main one, and all the graphics are the same and everything.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you can just have a PC as well and you can play everything that's an Xbox exclusive. So
Yeah.
realistically, all you need is a PlayStation and a PC.
Yeah, and you'll be able to play 100% of the games that are out.
Yeah, but I also think that's kind of why Xbox is kind of shying away or moving away from the whole need to have a console to play their games, with kind of putting more of their efforts into cloud gaming and being able to play on like a Fire Stick or whatever it is, just to try and sell more and more people on Game Pass.
Yeah, I know it's like super popular. I mean, I have an Xbox and I obviously have a PC, and it's like I'm paying for Xbox time and the Game Pass too. So like Game Pass is pretty good, pretty smart for them to do because they know people aren't, as many people aren't buying their consoles. Because I don't know if you remember this. So when the game or the consoles actually released, there was a long wait to get the PS5s. And I remember refreshing feeds, waiting to see when they were dropping to Best Buy or GameStop or whatever. I was actually able to purchase the new Xbox from the Xbox store before it was even available, like before the PS5 was even available on their system, so on their store. So like PlayStation stayed sold out for so much longer than the Xbox.
Yeah,
I think it just kind of showed.
It was impossible to get a PlayStation 5. My roommate at the time, he was able to get a PlayStation 5 because his sister lived out in like the middle of nowhere in Colorado.
Nobody's playing and they're all too old.
Yeah, there was like a Walmart that was there and they had I think a couple PlayStation 5s there, and he had his sister pick it up for him. So again, it's like one of those things we just kind of lucked out and got a PlayStation 5, and that's how we were able to play all these games. But
Yeah.
we never even like thought about getting an Xbox. It was PlayStation 5 or bust.
Well, like I was playing the PlayStation. Like I said, I've always been an Xbox player. Then like I started playing PlayStation because it was God of War. God of War, Spider-Man, all this stuff got me into the PlayStation. So like I was really excited for the new PlayStation. And it just got to a point where I'm like, screw this. I'm not waiting 6 months, another 6 months, because I'd already waited. I think at that point, by the time I bought my Xbox, I'd already been waiting like 6 or 7 months for the PS5 to be available. So I said, screw it. And if the PlayStation were available at that time, I would have 100% hopped on it. But I'm going to kind of transition to our next little segment here because I feel like we can talk about Xbox and PlayStation all day. So according to MPFirst.com, 90% of developers are saying that they don't believe that microtransactions belong in premium games. So if you like a simple Google search of this too, like brings up, about microtransactions, is that there's like literally like forums and forums of even your gamers that are complaining about microtransactions. You got games like Call of Duty, that come in at the baseline of a $60 price point, and they still are riddled with microtransactions. And like in my opinion, I think it's a big spit in your player's face. Like you're gonna charge, this premium price, and then we're only gonna give you we're not even giving you the full game. We're not giving you all the guns because there's so many guns that are hidden behind the battle pass or hidden behind this, which seems like almost like a paywall in order to get it. And I don't know, I can't remember when exactly the whole microtransactions even started happening. But back in like 2011, 2012, like there wasn't this. It was you paid, your $50 or $60 for the game, and you got everything, all the guns, all everything.
Yeah, it's funny because the first the microtransaction that people kind of tend to say that kind of started it all was back. I think it was I can't remember if it was Oblivion or Skyrim. It gave you the option to buy horse armor, and a lot of people say this is like kind of what started it all, would open the floodgates. But I mean, realistically, microtransactions have existed in gaming forever.
Yeah.
If you think about it, when you would go to an arcade and you died and it gave you the option to put a quarter back in and to restart or to get another life, that's kind of like a form of microtransactions. But it's definitely gotten a bit overblown now. Like I'm a big, or I was an avid NBA 2K player, and I loved Madden, I loved FIFA, and I can't remember the last one I bought. I think it was like 2K18 or 2K19 for NBA, and I would always buy the most expensive version because it came with an extra 100,000 of the virtual currency. I used to love playing the my player. So it's like you would take your player and you would build them up, and then you would invest all the virtual currency into them and level them up basically. And I remember this version. I bought it. I paid for the extra VC, and using all that 100,000 VC, I was only able to get my character up to like a 74 overall, 76 overall, like something ridiculous. Where in the past, like spending 100,000 of the virtual currency, you'd get it up to like an 80 something. Like, yeah, you'd be capped because it would make you'd have to do certain things before you could level up certain attributes. But no, this one, it was like, that was it.
Yeah.
After that, it just got ridiculous. You'd have to pay 1,000 virtual currency to get a haircut, to get tattoos, to buy clothes.
Oh my god!
Like, they had Nike stores ridiculous. where we were buying shoes and shirts and all sorts of stuff, and you're paying real money basically because you can't get this currency. You do get the currency by playing, but you have to play so much. Yeah, you have to play so much to get it, and you have to decide, okay, do I want to buy clothes, or do I want to increase my player's skill level? It does, like the barbershop in 2K, it doesn't give you the option to preview the haircut on your player. So the only way you can see what it looks like on your player is to purchase it.
Yeah.
So it just got overblown. But I think microtransactions, it kind of makes sense with free to play games. That's kind of the way they're able to maintain, like games like Fortnite. I think you have to have microtransactions. Otherwise, the game wouldn't be as expansive as it is, especially with how many updates and how many different game modes they provide. It's one of those things where, yeah, if you have a free to play game and you're not locking stuff behind a paywall, that's cool. I'm fine with paying a little bit extra for skins or for some other cosmetics or even stuff that just makes the game overall look better.
Yeah.
But like you said, if it's something where like you have to pay extra to buy a gun that is the best gun in the game. Like I know Overwatch, they released a new tank a while back, and this tank was the best tank in the game.
Yeah, I know
exactly. And the only way you could get this tank was to get the battle pass.
Yep.
If you didn't buy the battle pass, you could not play with this tank. And I was like, this is ridiculous. You have these people just destroying in competitive because they wanted to pay the extra $20-$30 or however much the battle pass was. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think microtransactions have their place. I wish the price of the skins and stuff like that weren't as high as they are. Like I think when you, like, I don't know, Call of Duty, they sell skins for like $15. It's like you buy 3 of them, and it's like now you just bought the whole game a second time. But like the thing I will say, I don't know if this is really considered a microtransaction, but I think battle passes are actually like a really cool thing. I don't think that you should lock guns and characters behind battle passes, but like, you know, old skins or weapon skins, stuff like that are definitely like a good idea. But like Overwatch, like you said, there's like a really good, I can't think of the name. There's a really good healer too that they locked behind the battle pass, and it's like, why do I need to pay for that? You're making it where I have to pay to play these characters. You know, give me the characters for free, and then unlock. You know, still put out your battle pass. Like I said, battle pass I think actually could be a really good idea, but just put like character models and, you know, skins like that in the battle pass. Don't force me to have to buy it. to
Yes,
play your game.
especially when those characters were defining the meta.
Yeah.
If it was one thing where it's like, yeah, it unlocks it, but you can only play it in quick play or casual game modes, that's fine, whatever. And then just release it the next season for everyone to play it. But if it's competitive and it's literally defining the meta, you're not winning unless you play with these characters. You're
Yeah.
kind of screwing yourself. It's like, okay, now I realistically have to pay to win.
Yeah, so speaking of games, I think that are doing it wrong, I want to mention an honorable mention for a game that's, in my opinion, doing it right. So there's a game that came out called Concord. It just recently came out, and so its price point is set at $40, and they're one of the first games in a long time that are actually just offering their whole game now. That includes all the guns, all the cosmetics, all that stuff with the purchase of the game. Now this game is a straight competitor to Overwatch, and then despite Concord having its poor reviews, which are mainly just due to it being slow paced and hard to follow, I think if we could get back to that standard of you pay this, if for premium games, if you're paying this $40, $50, $60, $70 for a game, give me the whole damn game and don't make me have to buy more crap to play it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. I think the idea of Concord was great. It's just difficult to try and compete in a game type where every other game in that type of in the hero shooter style is free to play.
Yeah.
Like it's impossible to try and compete. Like, why would I pay $50 for a game when I can just log on to Overwatch? Or you have Marvel Rivals coming out soon. And then you have Valve's hero shooter that's coming out here pretty soon, or it might actually be out already. I can't remember the name of it. But same thing. It's like, why would you pay for this? And then I know there was a lot of people kind of talking trash about it because of the whole wokeness aspect of the game. I haven't played the game, and it's not one of those things where I'm not going to boot up my PlayStation just to play this game, and I'm not going to pay $50 for it on Steam to play it. Again, everyone that's saying it's like a mixture of Destiny and Rainbow Six Siege, where the game is so slow. It's very similar to Siege, but the game type is Overwatch Destiny.
Okay. I don't know that's something I would play. So, so we're talking about all these new games and stuff like that. We talk about some new TV shows, or a new TV show, 2 new TV shows that are going to be coming out. So, Tomb Raider, an animated TV show, according to IndieWire.com, there is a teaser for Netflix of a Tomb Raider TV show that's supposed to be coming out October 10th, and we were actually just talking about this a little bit ago with the whole wokeness. So can you kind of explain that, how you were talking about how like there's already talk about wokeness making its way into this TV show?
Yeah, there's just a lot of Tomb Raider fans that are very opposed to this whole Tomb Raider reboot that's been going on for the last couple of years. Initially, when Lara Croft was introduced to the world, she was a grave robber, to be exact. She was like a badass chick that would kind of just adrenaline junkie. Yeah. And it's like, this is kind of going the complete opposite way. I think you don't even get to see her signature guns in this trailer. So I think there was a portion of it where the developers were kind of stating how they want to steer away from the idea of tomb raiding, and now she's going to be doing good to get, and these people are basically going to gift her the relics instead of her going in there and robbing the treasure, in a sense. So it's kind of taking away a lot of Lara's initial identity.
Well, with it being woke, I'm surprised that Sweet Baby Inc. didn't have anything to do with everything they touch being freaking woke.
And who knows, they might be involved somehow.
If you search it up, dude, they're actually praising the creators of it with how diverse the wokeness of the TV show. So I mean, there hasn't really been a whole lot of good games from Sweet Baby Inc. So to see a company like that praising it, I'm really hoping that this TV show doesn't flop. You know, because like we've had so many flops. Like we had the Borderlands movie that came out that did absolutely terrible. You know, and then luckily, Borderlands 4 got announced, and that's being released in 2025. So I guess they played the trailer, a teaser trailer, at Gamescom. And from my understanding too, like after the movie, like I guess like the diehard Borderlands players like actually refused to go watch it. So I'm kind of wondering like if that means if the diehard fans of this game were like, hey, don't go watch the movie, it's terrible, it's nothing like the actual game. I wonder if that's going to bring more people to go, play buy the new Borderlands game and just be like, oh yeah, like this movie had nothing to do with it. Like the game is so much better, Like I said, I've never been a big Borderlands player, but if the movie was that bad and that like not even that close to the game, I might just go have to purchase it, and see for myself. So maybe it flopping is gonna, make everybody want to go play and see what it's all about.
Yeah, it's crazy to see, and kind of touching back on the whole Tomb Raider thing too. It's weird seeing Netflix kind of do a bad video game adaptation, because I feel like everything Netflix has touched in terms of video game adaptations have been very good. With Arcane, the League of Legends show, getting great reviews. It was such a good show. Then you had the Cyberpunk show as well on top of that. So kind of seeing this and seeing them go the Tomb Raider route and not do it right is tough to see. But with Borderlands, it's a lot of people didn't like the third adaptation of the game.
Yeah.
It wasn't as popular as the second and first one. And realistically, I just don't know how looter shooter like Borderlands would do in today's landscape of gaming. I just don't think people would enjoy it as much. I think when it initially came out, it was great. It was awesome. And I'm curious to see what they do, and maybe they turn it into more of like a live service game, sort of like the first Ascendant,
nice.
Destiny style, where it's like a multiplayer and everyone can kind of jump in, and turn it into where you go in and you jump into a scenario and you clear it together. I think that's the only way they can really try and compete in today's landscape. Because
like looter shooters are a dime a dozen now, so you know what I mean. So they have to kind of separate themselves from all that crap.
Yeah, and I think what separated Borderlands a lot was their kind of crude humor and their just the way the game looks, their visuals.
I love their graphics, dude. Their graphics are so
way
good.
Different. Yeah.
So you were just talking about Netflix shows. So you were actually telling me about this one. So the creators of Love, Death, and Robots are bringing a new show called Secret Level. It's supposed to be coming to Prime. So you were basically explaining it to me that each episode is kind of like a short animated story about a video game. So like an example of that would be a story about Kratos from God of War, but the episode has nothing to do with the actual lore. It's an episode like in that realm. So can you kind of like talk a little bit, because you said you've seen Love, Death, and Robots. So how do you think this show is gonna like be good, and what's your opinion on it?
I think it'll be good. If it's anything like Love, Death, and Robots, it's gonna be good. I think bringing these characters that people love and kind of seeing a different aspect of the story, it's gonna be interesting to see. I think one of the ones that you got to see in the trailer was like an older Kratos, and you're kind of trying to imagine like what would an old Kratos do and what would he be doing living his life.
Yeah.
The people behind this show have done some of the best like teaser trailers in all of gaming, with like Halo Wars and Call of Duty, and I think they were involved with Gears of War. So it's going to be really cool to see what they can do with this creative liberty, especially knowing that Amazon is behind them. I think we've seen how well Amazon does these gaming adaptations, so I'm very excited to see what kind of stuff they do with it.
You got me pretty hype into it, especially you said talking about like some of these video game characters that we've known, like you said with Kratos and like the Gears of War, seeing them in like in a different light, which I think is gonna be really freaking cool. So Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
go
and
ahead.
seeing Keanu Reeves, I wonder if it's going to be a Johnny Silverhand thing, which I would be super stoked to see. Cyberpunk is probably one of my favorite games of all time, and I don't think I've been as hooked on a game
Yeah.
recently as I was with Cyberpunk. I think I replayed that game like 3 or 4 times trying to get every single ending, and I love the story. I loved everything about Cyberpunk. So if getting to see more about Cyberpunk, I think would be incredible.
Well, let's just hope that they don't step into the wokeness and just keep it how it is. So, last week, man, you were hyping up this game so much to me, and I mean, I still haven't played it, but you have Black Myth Wukong got released on the 20th. Now, I guess this game was such a hit that according to Game Reactor, the stock of PS5 or the inventory of PS5s in China was sold out due to the release of Black Myth, and which isn't really surprising considering that the game actually broke Steam's single player record with over 2 million concurrent users. And I guess the game is actually such a hit in China that the game had actually lost 2 million players when it was nighttime in China. So it went from like 2.3 million players during peak to like 300,000 players when China, when they were all sleeping. And this is actually one of the first games though that I think that was like developed in China that was like released for them that like made its way over here that was has been as popular as it is.
And they're the developers that made this game are originally they only designed mobile games.
Yeah.
Mobile games are so big in China that majority of these game developers are just designing mobile games. So it's crazy to see. And 300,000 is still like an
That's so
absurd
good.
number.
Yeah.
Like that's still a crazy
I'm
number.
saying it like
But,
it's nothing. No, it's still
but
pretty
when
good.
you go from like 2 million concurrent players, so like all of a sudden you drop like from 2 million to 300,000, like that's crazy to see. But
Yeah.
no, yeah, it's kind of it's a game that's loosely based on the Chinese tale Journey from the West. It's a hybrid mixed game. I would say it kind of mixes elements from like RPGs, Souls likes, and action adventure. I would kind of like to say it's like if FromSoft and God of War had a baby, and this is what came out.
Yeah.
It plays a lot like both of them. It has aspects of Souls like where you heal the same, you go to checkpoints and you rest, and then the minions that you just killed respawn. As you kill minions, you get points from them that you're able to put into talent points, but you don't lose everything when you die, which is one of the more common Souls like aspects.
Yeah.
The combat feels very much like God of War. Um,
Well, you
but
were saying too that the creators of this actually were done with it for a while, and they spent the last couple months like refining it, right, to try to really put out a polished game.
yeah, no, yeah, and they did do I would say a goodish job in terms of refining it. I think a lot of people are having a hard time playing it on PlayStation, and even some people with lower end PCs are struggling to play this at the level that it should be played. I think it's one of those games similar to when Cyberpunk was released. I think the developers just kind of overreached and try to make this perfect game, and
Yeah.
realizing that not a lot of people can really manage to play it the way it should be played. So I'm guessing some patches will come out and kind of fix it and like let people play it
Well,
and
correct
have a
me if
little
I'm
bit.
wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, real quick. This is actually like the developers' like first game of the genre, right? They've never done anything similar to this game mode or similar to like this game type.
Yeah. So definitely their next endeavor into this type of game will probably be bigger and better. I would say. I think this is a very good first impression. Like
So you don't think
for
Game of the Year?
no. No. There's a lot of I think it's a great game. I think it's fun. The bosses are tough. It's very similar to Souls like game where you'll encounter some bosses that are just so challenging and frustrating that you spend countless and countless of tries trying to defeat them. The really cool thing with this game that it lets you kind of change your build to adapt to different
Yeah.
bosses. Same thing with your armor. You're able to switch your armor out because this armor gives you a buff if you're in water, or this armor gives you a buff if you're in this type of lancet or fighting against this type of character. Same thing, like every time you defeat, not every time you defeat a boss, but some certain bosses will give you whether it's like a move set or a transformation that you're
Right.
able to use. So say you're struggling on this mini boss here, you can kind of go around and try and find someone else or fight more mobs and end up finding some other boss that you can kill, and you'll take some aspect of them that will help you and defeat this other boss.
Yeah, it's funny, man, because last week I was hyping the heck out of it. Well, you were hyping it to me, and I was, talking about how there was tons of articles about this game, they're talking about it already being game of the year, and it hadn't even been out yet. I watched a video from Asmongold, and he's praising the game, and it's so freaking good. So, like, the game right now has over 295,000 positive reviews on Steam. And despite that, it's only been given an 80% rating on Metacritic.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of good and some bad that this game does. I think the portions of it that aren't as great as the story, it's really hard to follow. I feel like if you don't know a lot of the whole journey to the west storyline, you're kind of just lost. Like there's if you're not
Yeah.
finding all the different uh books or whatever that you have to find to read and not paying attention during all the cutscenes, you're kind of just lost. Like in the beginning, you're introduced to this crazy cutscene. I think it's like one of the best introductions I've ever seen for a game, and you get this crazy tutorial fight scene. But then right after, you're thrown in, and they're talking about this prophecy, and you're kind of okay, what's going on? And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, you're thrown in, and you're grown up, and you're fighting, and
She's like, what happened?
basically, yeah, I was like, what's going on? So yeah, the story is not great. It's not easy to follow. There's a lot of bugs that kind of happen with this game, whether it's like because it's not open world. A lot of the times you're kind of exploring and you'll run into an invisible wall, or you
Well,
get
it's open
stuck in
zone, right?
yeah, or you'll get stuck in between like an invisible rock and a wall, and I found myself trying to traverse through landscape, and then I end up stuck, and now I have to reset my game to kind of get back to a rest point.
Yeah.
Or you're fighting a boss, and the bosses go through these invincibility phases where they're kind of zooming all over the place, and you don't really know what's going on, and you all of a sudden you lock onto some random thing and you just lose where the boss is at, or the boss will pin you like next to an invisible wall, and you're just like, what's going on? So I think the combat could use some refining, but again, it's like for their first time trying to do something like this, I think it's fine.
It
Definitely
makes you
not.
wonder how their second one's going to be. If they did like this good, wonder what their next one's probably going to be a freaking home run.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what they do in the future. I think this game was great, I think there's going to be a lot of hype
Just
kind of
not game of
going
the year
into it with
great.
this game. I don't think so. I think there's just been so many good games this year that it's hard to say. It's hard for this to compete with some of the other games that have come out.
And what's coming
Um,
out? I mean, we still have 4 more months.
yeah, I mean, and you have some crazy games that are coming out towards the end of the year, so it's like it's very difficult to. I don't even know if this is like top five for me in
Really.
terms of this year's releases.
Well, like, are you familiar with the lore behind the whole game?
Not really, and I do want to kind of look it up because I guess it's. So I don't know if you know like Dragon Ball Z. I guess Goku is loosely based around Sun Wukong.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of dynamics that kind of have pulled from this story in the past, and basically this monkey god did a bunch of stuff to kind of turn himself immortal, and then he just decided to go and battle against all these godlike creatures. So very similar to like Kratos in God of War, where he went in and they basically say this monkey, he went in, he ate from the tree of immortality, and he became immortal. then he went to the Book of Death and he ripped his name out of the Book of Death, so now he can't die and he's immortal again. It's just like crazy things like that. But I mean, I think Chinese mythology is so vast and so crazy that it's like I wouldn't be surprised if we see more games kind of pulling from these different type of lore stories and building from that.
Yeah, well, like the people who are given this game like the highest reviews are the ones that are actually like really big on their lore. I guess like they're saying like this game is like so lore accurate that's why it's so good. So I wonder like if we were to sit there and like do more of a dive like on our own into the lore behind it, maybe the game would have been better for us.
In a sense, yeah, maybe the story would be easier to follow, but I still think some of the gameplay issues and people basically being unable to play it on PlayStation 5 makes it a hard sell for me in terms of like I don't think I'm going to go back and finish it.
Really?
Yeah, especially with everything that's coming out, with World of Warcraft coming out this week, and then you have Space Marine 2 coming out next week. Again, it's so hard for me to find time to and justify playing this game when I just think there's so many better things out there.
Yeah, sure. So just to hit on this, you just said the one of them. So yeah, the upcoming releases for next week. Actually, yeah, World of Warcraft, War Within, I said August 26th. And we got Star Wars Outlaw, August 27th. And then I wanted to make a quick mention of a game on Steam. So Diablo 4 right now is actually 40% off on Steam. So it's priced at $29.99, which in my opinion is a pretty good buy if you're thinking of picking it up prior to the new expansion that's coming out in October.
And the game is in a really good place right now. It's super fun, super addicting, and if you just want to go in and just kill some monsters with some pretty fun archetypes, it's definitely
that'd be a good way to dip your feet into the whole, Diablo game type.
Yeah.
So you got anything else for today's episode?
No, that is it for me.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for today's episode of NoBS. If you enjoyed the unfiltered conversations, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube at NoBS Podcast GG. And don't forget to connect with us on X at NoBS Podcast GG for all the latest updates and more. We appreciate you listening, and we'll be back next week with more straight talk. NoBS.